Marwan Cameron, and this is the Conduit. All right, y'all, it's Monday, September 13th. It's 3 a.m. in the morning, 56 degrees in Kitsap County. You know, Monday is my favorite day. Of course, this COVID is still kicking my butt. So I'm usually up because I can't sleep at night pretty much at all right now. It's horrible. But, you know, we've been doing a lot of work here on the Conduit lately on, you know, the 9/11 SOS event. Shout out to Martita and Okoye for a successful event. Their 6th anniversary, 20th anniversary of 9/11. Sounds like it was a really good event. And we had a lot of folks come on and talk about not only that, but emergency preparedness and equity centered around that. Our school districts, our public health departments, even some of our politicians have come on to the podcast this last week. And many are or have agreed to continue that conversation on the Conduit. And so we have several shows lined up this week that's going to be centered around emergency preparedness. Again, you understand what's going on in the community right now, the nation and the world, in regards to this Delta variant and how it's wreaking havoc. The problem is, you know, a lot of us, we do this advocacy work and we're here in different spaces. We're trying to help folks in different ways that we can use our power, use our passion to make a difference. And although that's well and good, you know, we have this tendency to help everybody, right? Which is a good thing. And mostly, if we are willing to kind of focus on everyone, you know, we can have some level of success. If we're just focused on ourselves, that can be a little bit more challenging, depending on who's around you, your support, what kind of access you have to funding, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we know what these institutions of white supremacy, institutionalized racism, how they exist, and how, you know what they say, the devil's greatest trick is to make you believe that he didn't exist. And so that's exactly what's happening here with, you know, institutionalized racism and really Black racism, the oppression that we face, that we suffer, not only in America since its inception, but worldwide. You can see what types of things China is doing in Africa. We know how our Afro-Latina population is treated in many of the Latin countries. Aboriginal people in Australia. We can go on and on and on. The UK, Russia, really doesn't matter. The hate is real and it's global. But we're focused here locally. We are 13% of the population, and As it is said, white folks get a cold and black people get the flu. They should change it now. White people get a cold, black people get COVID. And so people wonder a lot, it's 2021. Why are we still in this space? Why are we still struggling as a nation after all this time? Why is there so much hate? Why is there so much division? Why do you see people who are fighting? And I mean, they are fighting against the vaccine. They're fighting against wearing a mask. They're fighting against having American history taught by telling the truth on what their family members did to black people, what they continue to do to black people. That when you see the racist activities that are taking place in our nation now, Dylan Ruth and others, these are kids. They're young. See, they lied to us and they said, well, the racist people, they're the grandparents and the great grandparents. They're going to die off and it's going to be a new time. Millennials, they're not concerned with that, right? There's a whole lot of interracial access, sexual access, where people can, they're more free to be with whoever they want to be with, and they don't see color, or they don't really care the way that they did in the 60s. But you still have the young Republican think tanks, and you still have the prison industrial complex. You still have 10% of black boys being able to read at proficient levels in school. You still have police brutality. You still have inequities in housing, in jobs. There was a stat. I'm still trying to get the actual data on this, but Martita had said something on one of the podcasts the other day saying that there were like 12,000 shipyard workers here and only 300 of them were minorities or black people or something along those lines. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm not going to use that stat until I know where it came from. But if that's true, how the hell is that true? But I know, right? I've told you the story about working at the Navy for Fleet and Family and being one black male out of 50 plus employees. So here we are. 2022 is right around the corner. We are pretty much in the last quarter of the year. October is 2 weeks away. It's 2022. Biden's been in office for a year. Democrats would have you believe that all things racist are because of Trump, and that is the scapegoat. You watch the left spend all this time continuously fighting the boogeyman, who is Donald Trump. Democratic Party is so weak, it's laughable. Like I said, I compare them to the Peanuts gang, and the Democratic Party is Charlie Brown, and the Republican Party is Lucy. Go ahead. I'm not going to move the football. Come and kick it. I promise I'm not going to move it. And Democrats go for it every single time. I watch Ari Melber and all the other folks on MSNBC. They talk about Trump every single day. Trump, 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 Trump. What are they doing for Black Americans? What has Biden done for Black Americans? He's done a whole lot for every other demographic. What's Kamala Harris done for Black Americans? What has the Congressional Black Caucus done for Black Americans? Aside from meet with Cardi B and Meg the Stallion and people that are destructive to Black folk. Locally, we have the same bullshit. Folks that are in positions, shake hands, smile. They're advocates. They say all the right things, and nothing really changes. Or it changes so slow, right? We're so easily distracted. We get caught up into something else. It's another football season now. Football is here. Shout out to Reverend Ellington. I was listening to his sermon today. It's a conversation he and I have all the time, where the sheep will fall asleep. They want to be pacified. All these injustices and things are happening. I wonder, once the eviction moratorium wears off and you've been evicted in mass, Black folks, and you have no livable wage job, there's no affordable housing, and you're still dealing with the pandemic, will that get you back into the streets marching? Who will stand there with you? You know, they spoke about how during this pandemic, the transference of wealth is pretty much accelerated on unseen levels, right? People losing their lives, people losing their homes, people losing their businesses, people going into debt, credit card companies canceling credit cards, credit scores, rental history, everything being destroyed. See, disproportionately, we're incarcerated, we're homeless, we're sick, we're obese, we're all these things. But, like I said, it's football season. Or we're just going to let go of the wheel and let Jesus. God got it. I don't have to do anything. I'll show up to church next Sunday, go through the motions again. God will provide. Give me a man. He'll bless me with the abundance. Give me what I need. May not be there when you need him, but he'll be right there on time. And I'm not being blasphemous. What I am saying is it gives us a way of not having to be accountable, right? The world's bad. There's systemic racism and oppression, and this has happened since the dawn of our time in America. So we're just going to give it to God and go and just do the best that we can and yada, yada, yada. Oh, and by the way, don't you try to mess up my bag. When you read the description, if you take the time in there are some things that I just don't see anyone in the Black community talking about, at least not here locally. I will say, Koya and I have some of these conversations. We had a 5-hour pod a couple weeks ago. when that CRT stuff was going on in Postal, and some of that stuff came out on air, you know. But for the most part, these conversations don't happen. See, it's all turn the other cheek and forgive no matter how heinous or how badly we're treated. They can piss on our head and tell us it's rain, and we just continue to accept it. And then our gatekeepers that are right here, they lie. They tell folks in other counties that, there's no black organizations doing any work here. Well, then we have to extend grace to them and say, well, it's post traumatic slave syndrome. We see what's happening in Afghanistan. So whatever you believe really doesn't matter. It's not your country. But now that they have control back, some folks are going to pay for what the Taliban probably feels was treasonous acts, right? We've seen some reports on the news they've been going door to door. Slavery would have ended far earlier if the sellout slaves, those seeking meritorious manumissions, and I've talked about that on several podcasts, didn't tell the slave master that a slave revolt was going to happen, who the troublemakers were. And so when you see police brutality, when you see two women, one black, one white, get charged for the same thing, one do get probation, another one get years. When you see whatever the white structure that makes them dismantle, particularly black men, Gayle King, Oprah, because they're used as attack dogs. And they get so good at it. And again, locally, they get so good at it, white folks don't even have to say anything. They don't have to use the German command for attack. They just attack on their own. I'll protect you, master. I got you, master. Don't even worry about it. I've been COVID hit me, and it's definitely a setback. Definitely real. And as I'll remind people, CREEF, which is a black organization that was started here in Kitsap County, had a grant program, and they wanted to give money to BIPOC organizations, first black, to do work in the community. I talked about their questioning, right? And how they want to be different, but at the same time, it's like, oh well, we're still kind of operating the same way. So you're going to answer these questions on this grant, and how is this meager little money? How are you going to dismantle the institution of white supremacy, which was laughable and offensive? So offensive, in fact, that I responded to the grant in WordPad. I didn't even, it was just a rough draft. I didn't spell check, didn't go back and make sentences make sense, and submitted it in. That's how offensive it was to me. And of course, right, you definitely don't thumb your nose at the black power structure that exists in any space, because they will be quick to show you who they are and what they're about. So of course I wasn't going to get the money, and I didn't. But they did extend an open invitation, right, for me to come and speak, and they want to hear what I have to say, and they'd like to tell me what they're about. I think it's more the latter. And see, I've heard things because folks don't know who I know or how I know them. So some pretty prominent people have said some pretty shitty things. The expectation is that I need to be a bridge builder. I need to turn the other cheek. That I need to do different in order for us to move forward. That I have to be the magnanimous one. I see they will rally together and make sure that you don't get anywhere because you are a dangerous Negro. You are dangerous. And they're goddamn right, I am dangerous. I am dangerous. That said, as I continue to come into my own, educate myself, figure out who the players are, what they've said, who they're connected to, where their money comes from, what they're willing to do to keep these institutions in place, we'll bring it out into the light. See, the real freedom is when you don't have anything to lose. See, for so long, you're climbing. You take the blue pill. Matrix comes out here in Christmas. They just had the previews for it. So like the Black Neo, I'm taking the blue pill. Go to college, get a degree, go to work, serve. Your job is to serve other people. That's what you do. Doesn't matter if they tell you that they hate you to your face, that they tell you that you're beneath them, that they could have sold drugs, destroyed your culture, destroyed families, hurt people, but somehow now they are self righteous. And everyone goes along with it, right? You'll hear about the buffer class in this video that I'm about to play and how it's used against us, and how, because of who we are as a people, being forgiving, being accepting, wanting to collaborate with folks, that we get used all the time. And people tell you that, "Oh, I'm your ally, I'm in your corner." And they'll come out, they'll march with you, they'll help you, they'll say all the right words, and then they'll say something else later. And oftentimes they're so blinded in their own self-righteousness, they'll say it directly to you, not even realizing how racist it is and how it really reveals their true heart. So I ask you to look in the description. I talk about how the construct of BIPOC is tremendously dangerous for Black people, just like the civil rights era, as I was saying. The bridge, the pictures, the hoses, the billy clubs, the deaths for the civil rights era, the government sanctioned murder of King, Malcolm. See, we did all that, and then white women, other demographics benefited from it, right? Everyone's using affirmative action when it was all well and good. Now, other communities in our BIPOC, affirmative action is bad. I even tell you it's a reverse discrimination. So we can fight the blood, sweat, tears, the death, the compromised careers, and the ability to make money, take care of our families, send our kids to the best schools, have home ownership, transfer wealth from generation to generation, not be martyrs, dying early from hypertension and other health issues. Kind of happening now, right? George Floyd dies, and what Biden does is gives $50 million to the Asian American community for Asian American hate. But then the crime statistics came out by the FBI, and well, actually didn't compare. Black folks were still. So it's not to say that Asian Americans weren't receiving hate, because they absolutely were, right? I mean, we saw the footage of it. We heard the stories. But what about us? Another article came out on how all these huge corporations pledge these billions of dollars to, how do they put it? Help Black women and minorities, which pretty much excludes Black men, right? And when we look at many of the demographics across the board, Black men actually are suffering worse than Black women, but it's Black women and minorities. Go ahead and Google grants for African Americans. See how many grants you can find. See how many programs you can find that are just for Black boys or Black men. They're there all day long for Black women or LGBTQI plus. I was Phil Scott. I listened to his channel. has the African diaspora, and I'll do critiques of some of the news that he puts on there. I like him as a news source, informative, and worldwide news. And he had a Haitian brother on there, and the conversation was how Phil, in his eyes, had gone from being really optimistic and, hey, brothers and sisters, let's come together. We could do this, yada yada yada. Till now, he's like, you know what? 2/3 of y'all ain't gonna make it, and there's no point. You can't save them all. And the Haitian brother was saddened by the fact that he went from the optimism of trying to pull us all together as a people and grow to, you know what? All I can do is help those that are receptive to the message. And what Phil Scott was saying was, um, he talked to a therapist, black therapist, and the therapist told him and reminded him really of that fact, right? Is you're not going to be able to help everyone, and there's no point in you getting stressed out over, I'm paraphrasing here, trying to penetrate those that don't want to be penetrated, that want to be asleep, that want the, ratchet, thoughting it up, wine women song, Pookie Ray Ray, whatever the case may be, defunct black church, those seeking meritorious manumissions, those that would fight you and other family members to keep the institution of white supremacy going. The problem is that so many people on the left that can't even see how much they are like the Candace Owens and the Larry Elders of the right. I actually probably should just start calling them that. That might be what I do. So if you start seeing me calling local people Candace Owens or Larry Elders, and you're like, huh? Aren't they Democrats? I mean, they go to this church and that church, and I mean they're good folks. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. The gatekeeping, butter biscuit eating, meritorious manumission seeking folks. But the therapist was saying you're not going to be able to save them all. Hell, even the Christian Bible talks about that, right? Everyone isn't going to be saved. Something that I was saying before, people kind of fall in three camps. The ones that are already in your camp and receptive to the message, those that it doesn't matter what you say, they'll never come to your side. Doesn't matter how logical you can be, doesn't matter how emotional your plea can be, they're not coming over. And then there's those that are in the middle that you might be able to bring to your side. So the numbers that are already in your side, they're going to be small. It's only going to be a few. And there's going to be a lot that you think are on your side, and they're really not. Maybe they're on your side for a season. They want it, but to live that life, too much scrutiny, too cut off. There'll be those that are on your side that'll go and report it to the enemy. We don't hear much from the supporters of Biden right now. Been a year, going on a year. What has he done for us? One of the worst politicians in American history to black people, Joe Biden. And you had mother against son when it came to voting time. That Biden was the savior from Trump. It's so scary to me that you feel like you can see what the future holds, that you see the black homeless now, that you see the uneducated, you see the children who don't have the tools, that aren't on their own level of development of where they should be at. And the fact that their parents, either they're doing the best they can, don't care, or don't know. I told you the story about the son in Baltimore that went 4 years in school and had a, what was it, a .015 GPA. Mom didn't know. School dropped the ball. Literally, this black kid just exists in a space for 4 years and essentially did nothing from the ninth to 12th grade. And instead of addressing and acknowledging what the issue is, folks blamed it on the boy, the child. Folks blamed it on the father who wasn't in the home. Matter of fact, there were folks that were actively arguing against me when I said a lot of the blame had to go on the mother. But even she's a symptom of the overall problem. See, we're not accountable to anyone. No one can hold us accountable. We get to do what we want when we want, and to hell with any of the consequences. So no, we're not all going to make it. I'm watching dumbasses commit crimes on IG live, have no value for human life. We see the cities, we know the stories in Chicago, we see the shootings every week in these major cities. And no one has control over these babies that grow into these heinous people. And it sounds like now our men can't even go and clean it up because, well, our own community doesn't support our men. So now all this stuff just goes unchecked. Our mental health levels are horrible. We're watching an increase on mothers hurting their babies, domestic violence, both ways. So no, we're not going to be able to save everyone. I was asked the other day, uh, Rob was asking me, did I feel like with the vaccine mandate where things kind of going in an Orwellian direction? And kind of chuckled at that because I'm like, well, for black folks, it's already been Orwellian, right? It's already been a dystopia. The strange thing is we didn't even have to be here. Biden kind of came into office and been very hardline and said, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to spend this money. We're going to shut this thing down. We're going to get ahead of this thing. And once we've got this thing beat, then we're going to open it back up. We're going to close the borders. We're going to do all the things that we got to do. But no, it was like, oh, I don't want to. It should be on the individual, states to do what they're going to do. I don't want to go that far. But you could see what was going to happen. You see what had been happening. And then again, we're the first line workers. We're in the service industry. We don't own our homes. We don't have the savings. We don't have careers. We don't have sick leave. We don't have vacation. We don't have jobs that we can telework. So then it opens back up. And now we're where we're at. And now when you try to do something about it, you're still kind of half-ass doing it. Well, if you remember, it'd be a good idea to wear your mask and just help each other and, you know, kind of like that their version of parenting, bargaining with your kids. Bargain with your kids. This is how it's going to be. But now we're here. And they're saying that if you're vaccinated, your chances are 1 in 5,000 that you'll have a breakthrough case. 1 in 5,000. Should I get a lottery ticket? And even now, it's being mandated now. Oh, you will take the vaccine, or you will have to test and test and test, and you have to do all these things. But Congress doesn't have to do it. The post office doesn't have to do it. So all of a sudden, there's still only select few people that need to have the vaccine forced on them, and other folks just, well, you don't worry about them. You can keep on traveling because money, freedom. So if it mutates somewhere else and it's brought in, I mean, we ask that you consider staying home during this holiday and, find a way to just stay safe with you and your family locally and yada, yada, yada. We know you're not going to do it because we see the crazies on the plane that can't even wear their mask and they're just losing their minds. A white dude's barking like a dog on the plane. I mean, there's just like craziness, right? I was like, oh, it's the alcohol on the planes. No, okay, it's not the alcohol on the planes. These people been getting alcohol on the plane since since forever, right? Folks are losing it. They're coming unraveled. The problem is there's so much distraction that we don't see it. We don't see the state of the world around us because we're busy self-medicating, hiding, not wanting to think about it, not wanting to face it, not wanting to deal with it. So we ignore it. We pacify ourselves. I'm high, I'm drunk, turning up, it's hot girl summer, all these things. The problem is again, for us, when it hits, it's going to be too late. It's already too late for so many of us. And we don't know how to work together. I was watching a podcast earlier and it was talking about bartering and getting back to bartering. And I thought that was really, really cool. And that's absolutely right that we do need to get back to bartering, right? And that's really what I've been saying is we have to find a way to build our circle of support, which means that we have to figure out how we're going to work together to get what we need accomplished, to fill in the gaps. And there are a lot of gaps that we have, right? We have a lot of deficits. And if we keep following how and what the dominant society does, we're going to fail. And it very well may be that for us, things are going to have to get considerably worse so that we can be forced back into having to rely on each other to get through, to survive. Right now, I don't need you. You need me. We're good. But other groups, they do need each other. They do work with each other. You're going to watch us perish. I've got something else that I want to play, but another channel that I watch, Go Black to Africa. Shout out to them. I like zombie movies. And it's you think America is thriving, the growth of zombies is real. And he takes a camera down Philadelphia streets, and it's like, whoa, whoa. And again, we're not seeing it. So he films for 45 minutes. We'll play a little bit of it. Go ahead and put it on here. Let's see if I can yeah, I already have it at 1.5 speed. But this is Philadelphia. And he's just recording. This is in Bremerton too. This is in Seattle, Oregon, California, Texas, New York, Chicago, Hawaii. And you can see the numbers of black men. See, once you're here, you're not thinking about a Biden or Trump. It's too late though, right? And once a critical mass of us are affected in this way where we can't come back from it, and while they tell you, oh, well, there's LeBron and Kanye, and you don't think that this can't be you, that many of these people were you, then you're delusional. Let the eviction moratorium wear off and you get COVID and you can't go to work and you don't get rental assistance. You get evicted and you don't have friends and family. Let you go through a streak of hopelessness and begin to self medicate or medicate more or modify your self medication. because you can't get in to see a doctor, or they don't give you the health care that you actually need. They don't hear what your true pain is, what your ailments are. That they treat some of the symptoms, but they don't treat the root cause. That you go through Hurricane Ida or the flooding in the basement apartments in New York. Let your teenage kid go to a party and think they're smoking weed that's laced with something else and get hooked on their first ride. Fair use. We don't want to see the homeless. And the ironic thing is that there are some people that are listening that this is their future. This could be my future. I can have a few things go bad. Maybe I end up a long haul COVID person. And I'm so fatigued I can't do anything for a really long period of time. See, it's a hot summer in Philly. See a lot of shorts, people with no shirts on, short sleeves. It's cold in Philly. I don't know what it's going to take to get us to wake up. This is a beautiful woman that looks relatively healthy, young. You got the ice cream man truck in the background. The visual of that is just really odd. And if you want to watch the whole video, go black to Africa. I'll put the link down in the description there. But again, I the video I'm going to play next is from the Black Authority. That's why that's there first. Oh, whoops. It's really sad. It really is. But that's the reality. That's what's happening. We have got to get ready. We have got to get ready. And again, we're not going to be able to save everyone. Some are already lost, unfortunately. But you've got to address the root and not the symptom. And so let's get into the root. Fair use is the Black Authority. Again, fair use. Now, normally, I don't play videos in their entirety with not a lot of breaking it up from commentary. But I don't think that I can say it better than um, Jason Black. So I think it needs to be played just wholly. I know that you folk don't hear conversations like this, that most aren't going to be able to be intellectually honest enough to say, yeah, it does happen. And it is a lot more than what it is, right? See, there's that cognitive dissonance, right? Right. All blue lives matter. Oh, the bad cops, they're just it's just a few bad apples. And you might even say, well, a few bad apples spoils the bunch, but it's just still just a few bad apples. And if we get some of these just bad actors out the way, we'll be okay. But you have the benign neglect that's not so benign by other officers that may be good officers that allow it to happen, right? Because then they become the focus of attack, right? Their careers are put on hold. And so, again, we all participate in keeping these systems in place because, well, I mean, I got to earn a living and I got to take care of my family, and I don't want the ire of, my brothers and sisters in arms to turn against me because I reported something. And we've seen the stories of officers who have reported and have been ostracized, threatened, and all kinds of other things, and have lost their jobs. And some have, you know, put themselves out there and lost their jobs because of it. But then we got some of the tough black guy cops and black women cops that are more violent than some of the white cops on us just to show that they can. I'm one of y'all. So he says it better than I do. And the problem is that, see, it's okay for those of us in the black community to call out or sell out coons. We can do that. Now, sometimes we'll get some pushback on that. And, typically with the dominant society, white folks will say, why is he saying these things about you? Why is this person saying these things about you? And, maybe you should address that. And sometimes they'll defend that black person because, with Larry Elder, you'll see Fox News champion their tool. because they've got to protect their tool, right? Their tool is useful right now. They can put them out there and say, see, a black person said it. I didn't say it. Your own people believe that. So they'll defend that. But now others in the BIPOC community, if you call them out, if you call out the Asian community, if you call out the Latino community, if you call out the LGBTQI community, if you call out the indigenous community for their transgressions and oppression on the black community, then you got a problem. Because when they turn on you, you've got no damn hope. Right? So much for the coalition. And so our black male bodies can be used to march, and you see the signs for everything, not about the police brutality, but about all the other things that want to be pushed forward and pushed through, and where money gets diverted and funneled. But if you call it out, you're being divisive. That's not helpful. It's a class thing. It's not a race thing. We're all being oppressed. See, the thing is that everybody wants their truth, right? I'm living my truth. No, you're going to start living the truth. This ain't a safe space for you. The truth ain't safe. The truth is truth. So come on, bring it on. I guess I'm starting to feel better. Woo, baby. That's what I'm talking about. Actually, I don't feel great, but I actually do feel good right now.
Tonight on the Black Channel, what happens when you can no longer guarantee your whiteness? What happens when you find your white card revoked? Do you back down? Do you double down? The Black Channel is live.
I am playing this a little bit faster.
Unapologetic, unadulterated, and absolutely uncompromising. Greetings, brothers and sisters from around the world, and welcome back to the home, the haven, the stronghold, and the everlasting super fortress of intelligent black thought. We are the Black Media, and this is the Black Channel, and I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the voice of Black America, the Black Authority, broadcasting to you live from the only historically Black college and university of higher education and learning in the cosmos. You are, of course, welcome to join us.
And join us you shall.
And join us you shall, because on tonight's program, you know, last night I was talking about controlling a population through fear. That's what I was talking about last night. Last night we were talking about 9/11, and it's been 20 years since that happened. We were talking about those events. We were talking about those circumstances. And I wanted to take this as an opportunity to review some other parts of that, because you wake up in America, you wake up in white society, and there come these times, these instances, these moments where the situation crystallizes itself. It really does. And then you find out exactly what it is that doesn't work. You find out exactly what it is that can't work out for certain folks. And so it becomes a situation where some people who thought things were going to go one way found out it was going to go another. And there was one thing that I saw, and I wanted to cover this before, but we're going to go ahead and cover that now. There was a fella here, Mr. Dean Obadella, and I think that this really encapsulates a lot of it here. I think this really encapsulates a lot of it, because there are dimensions to this. There are levels to this. And you're really looking at a situation where a lot of folk are saying, you know, what happened for me? A lot of folks are saying, you know, now that black folk have paved the way, can we jump in here? And if we find ourselves in a tough spot where we are not being given some of those white privileges, what can we do to elbow our way through and try to use black people's work for our benefit? And I found this to be an interesting case study in that regard. As you can see from the title of it, on 9/11, my white card was revoked by Mr. Dean Abdallah. On September 10, 2001, I went to sleep a white guy. On September 11, I woke up an Arab. That's the first sentence of the first paragraph of this article he wrote. First words he says, when I went to sleep, September 10, 2001, I went to sleep a white guy. On September 11, I woke up an Arab. Now, as you all know, it wasn't until the 1970 census that the current day so-called Latinos, Hispanics, were separated from white society. It wasn't until then that they were officially separated and sent out on their own. Before then, they were considered and classified as white. And the fact that they were considered and classified as white before, and nobody said anything, tells you that if that ever changes in the future and they're reincorporated, there would be no problem with that happening. There'd be no problem at all. That could very easily occur. That's the real point for you to understand. But they're far from the only ones. You see, I was sitting here covering this a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about this. I was covering this a couple of weeks ago when I was telling you all that with the Afghans that they're bringing over here, that even Tucker Carlson of Fox News, white supremacist archfiend, even he acknowledged that these are essentially white people. Now, he's not eager to let them over because of ethnic issues, but as far as racial issues, well, these are essentially white people. Not just white people, religious fundamentalist white people, by the way. So while black folk are still just now beginning the conversation talking about Latinos, that they're part of the white race, you haven't even talked about the fact that, by the way, there's other groups, supposed Arabs, supposed Muslim people. There are other groups that classifies with there. So with that being the case, some of these other folk who are out there, we've just begun these conversations. We've just begun talking about this. We got a whole bunch of folk we got to deal with in that regard. Tonight, you're going to get a primer. He goes on to say those lines, which I said in the New York Times in 2006. So that was a quote from him. That earlier sentence about on September 10th, I went to sleep a white guy. On September 11th, I woke up an Arab. That was in quotations. Those lines, which I said to the New York Times in 2006, sum up my life. Pre 9/11, I was white dean. Post 9/11, I became minority dean. Must have been quite a shock to the system for him. I'm not alone in that experience. Many Arab Americans who, like me, were born and raised in the United States also went through the same metamorphosis. In the years that followed 9/11, our white card was revoked by our fellow Americans. I'm the living, breathing example of the concept that in America, quote, race is a social construct. Oh, here it comes. If you were wondering where I was going with that, and if you were wondering why I was saying what I'm saying here, well, there it is. Here it comes. Race is a social construct. Now, we all know how this goes. Because the way that this goes is that race is a social construct. Therefore, whatever protections black folk get should be extended to some other folks, even if they were classified as white. So just recognize where that's going. My skin color didn't change on 9/11, he said, but the way that I and many in my community have been treated by society since that tragic day 20 years ago has dramatically changed in a way that was completely out of our hands. After that day, we were seen not just as members of a minority community, but as a group demonized and hated by many of our fellow Americans, simply because we shared the same ethnic background and, in some cases, religion as the 9/11 terrorists. While some Americans wrongfully equate Arab with Muslim, a majority of Arab Americans are actually Christian. Hate crimes spiked against our Muslim and Arab communities to levels never before seen. It's not that I didn't expect that my life would change after 9/11. I witnessed the tragedy unfold as I stood on the corner of 8th Street and 6th Avenue in Lower Manhattan. If I close my eyes, I can still picture the crystal blue sky on that September morning, shattered by the gray and white smoke bellowing from the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The only one of the towers still standing when I walked outside. And then, suddenly, the tower buckled and was gone within seconds, leaving behind only a blue sky and the sense that America would never be the same. I didn't talk about being of Arab heritage for many months. I was a stand-up comedian at the time and used my middle name, Joseph, in lieu of my last name in the first shows after 9/11 to distance myself further. In time, however, I went from the reluctant minority to a proud and unapologetic one. In between, though, I learned firsthand what white privilege was because mine was revoked. Now, I want to back this up for a moment here. You'll notice that he said that there, when I was a stand-up comedian and I used my middle name instead of using my last name. So he's saying he was calling himself Dean Joseph. You see, this is what is insidious about white supremacy and other groups of people claiming that they are somehow minorities like us and oppressed like us. You see, all he's got to do is a name change and bam, he can enter whiteness. All he's got to do is a name change, dropping a surname, and bam, he can adopt whiteness. You see, that's how far from being oppressed, how far from being discriminated against. That's how far from suffering under white supremacy he is. He is a name change away from being able to do that. Just a name change away. The dropping of a surname, the dropping of a suffix. That's how far away he is. And then next thing you know, he's white with all the protections and privileges thereof. There it is. Just that easy for him to avoid the slings and arrows and oppression that we as black folk have to deal with. So you see, he understands what white supremacy is. Let's be very, very clear. He knew he wasn't white, but he understood what white supremacy is. Did you get that? He understood it. The very fact that he knew how to maneuver within it himself tells you, oh, I know the rules. I know the rules. Just that easily, he showed you, yeah, I get it, I understand. I know the get down. He goes on to say here, for me and many who share my heritage or faith, that meant being defined by the worst in our community and being called to answer for them. In this case, the 9/11 terrorists. Well, black folk have to do that every damn day. They go off and go find the dustiest bumwick they can go find somewhere, the rattiest painted nails, bonnet wearing, overweight, sagging belly, tattooed hood rat. Now, that's what they do with black folk. So, welcome to the party, pal. I can't tell you how often people, from politicians to pundits, demanded that Arab and Muslim Americans denounce these terrorists from other parts of the world who we had no personal connection to except sharing an ethnicity or faith. Quote, why are we responsible for them is a question I would ask. As I traveled across the country in 2012 to 2013 making the comedy documentary, The Muslims Are Coming, I learned that if we didn't speak up, many of our fellow Americans truly thought, insultingly, that we agreed with the terrorists. Well, so much for silence is complicity. In contrast, one of the many benefits of white privilege is never being defined by or having to answer for the worst in the white community. Now, I wonder if Mr. Abadella here would be extending this to black folk. I wonder if he was extending this same leniency to black people, that we're not required to answer for folk out there doing things they shouldn't be doing. I wonder. He goes on to say, for example, after the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing by Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, no one demanded all white people denounce them or be viewed as complicit. In fact, after the January 6th attack on our capital, which the FBI has deemed an act of domestic terrorism, there are even some white conservatives seemingly defending the attackers. Imagine the deafening backlash if Arab or Muslim American leaders publicly defended the 9/11 terrorists like this. Well, we as black folk been dealing with, forget pundits, we've been dealing with senators, representatives, governors, presidents, including the sitting president, who have been espousing outright white supremacy, demagoguing black people, and beyond just what's happened to you white Arabs, they've been making laws against us. Laws that are still standing, not some statute or some executive order that can get wiped away by the next executive. They got laws for us, laws that have existed for centuries here. So, buddy, you ain't seen nothing. Take a look at how loud you squealing, and you haven't even been through nothing. You haven't even experienced anything. Take a look at how loud you squealing. This is daily life for black people since Plymouth Rock. This is daily life for us. He's just now saying something. Well, we've been feeling the brunt for the last 20 years. We've been feeling it for the last 20 months, for the last 20 decades. What the hell are you talking about? He goes on to say, it's also not as if I didn't know prior to 9/11 that if I was of Arab heritage, I'm from a biracial, multi-religious family. My father was a Palestinian Muslim immigrant who came to the US in 1957. My mother is Catholic and the daughter of Sicilian immigrants, but I was raised to be white. Even my name is an example of that. My father wanted to name me Salah al-Din, after the famous Muslim warrior often referred to as Saladin. My mother, though, being born in the US and seeing firsthand the struggles of her immigrant parents, understood that a name like Salah al-Din would be very challenging, to say the least, in America. That is why I was named Dean. So for those of you who thought I was messing up when I said Saladin instead of saying Saladin, you have been corrected. You're welcome. Growing up in New Jersey, and by the way, for those of you who've never been in New Jersey, yes, the Asian and Arab populations there are for real, for real. Growing up in New Jersey, I've joked that all my friends had names like Monica, Chandler, and Joey, except for my Arab cousins. I didn't know any others of Arab heritage. But then came 9/11. What I never could have predicted was the impact 9/11 would have on me personally. This may surprise or even shock some, but 9/11 set in motion a journey that led me to embrace both my Arab heritage and the Islamic faith. But in the aftermath of 9/11, I didn't want to lose my whiteness. Did you get that? I didn't want to lose my whiteness. And the aftermath of 9/11, I didn't want to lose my whiteness. While I didn't fully understand what white privilege was, I instinctively understood that my life would be more challenging as a minority. People, white supremacy is a non-verbal education. No one anywhere has to sit you down and teach you the rules of white supremacy from a list in a book. All they got to do is let you live. They teach you through the system and practices, through the practices and the principles and the rules. That's how you get indoctrinated into the system of white supremacy. You learn by observation. You learn by action and reaction. That's what he's telling you. He goes on to say, the past 20 years have been trying times, to say the least. From recent spikes in hate crimes, worse than in the aftermath of 9/11, to right-wing politicians openly demonizing Muslim Americans to score political points. But over those 20 years, both the Arab and Muslim communities have also become much more organized and engaged in areas from media to politics. From TV shows like Rami, about an Arab American family, Muslim American women serving in record numbers in Congress, and even the Attorney General of Minnesota in Keith Ellison. Did you see that right there? Did you see that? Did you see that? Now you tried to basically ring in, a whole bunch of other folk there. You're going to ring in a bunch of folk who aren't white, by the way. Muslim American women serving in record numbers in Congress. So now you're trying to include black women in that group. Now you're trying to include them. You're trying to include black men among their numbers. See, what's happening there is, we're going to include black folk to bolster our numbers for our cause. We're going to use black folk to boost our numbers for our cause. So we're going to bring in Keith Ellison and Ilhan Omar. We're going to bring in some black people, not for the purposes of promoting a black agenda, not for the purposes of defending black people, but if we can use your black ass as a shield to defend us and promote us. Race is a social construct. Did you see how that happened right there? Did you see how that was put together? Did you see how they did that? Just that quickly and just that easily. I want you, if you thought I wasn't going anywhere with this, and if you thought, well, are you going to put that in focus? There it is, right there. Just that quickly. In order to defend white Arabs, he immediately goes to include black people and say, well, take a look, there's a point of commonality, as if what black Muslims have to go through is in any way the same as what white Arabs have to go through. Louis Farrakhan and the Nation of Islam have been the focus of the Justice Department spying and every damn thing else since things started. You don't see any of these white Arab mosques going through the same thing the Nation of Islam has. Never has occurred. Hell, you had the damn mayor of New York advocating for them to build a mosque. And this was after 9/11. Michael Bloomberg had the mayor of New York advocating for it. This is what we deal with. It's in no way similar. But take a look at how quickly, let's go grab up some black folk to defend ourselves with. He ends saying 20 years after 9/11, I couldn't be prouder to be a minority, which is something I never thought I would say when I was still white. So just that quickly, I want you to understand everybody understands the rules of white supremacy. Everybody knows the get down. Everybody knows what you have to do to be safe. Everybody knows what you have to do to be protected. Everybody knows what you have to do. And they also understand that as long as you throwing them boots in the ribs of black folk, that will be enough. That shows you're on the right side of things. That shows you get it. And that's all they're really looking for. That's what they're really looking for. Now, just in case you thought I was done, just in case you thought, okay, well, that's one example of it here. Oh, no, you ain't seen nothing yet. We're going to get to all of that here. We're going to get to all of that. A number of folks out there understanding the way things are going now. And take a look as they're going to pivot back to us. Well, everybody's trying to see if they can figure out some way to finagle and to hold on to their honorary whiteness. And we all know what the true cost, the true litmus test of holding on to your honorary whiteness is. You are judged by how you treat, or should I say, mistreat black people. That is the litmus test for retaining your honorary whiteness. We're going to go ahead and take a very brief commercial, non-commercial.
So that's the Black Authority channel. Definitely would tell you to check that out. He definitely has some very polarizing opinions on some things, but he tells it straight, no chase. And I'm sure he'll be labeled a racist and all kinds of other negative things based on that. But as you can see, I couldn't articulate that thought better than he could, which is why I felt like I just needed to go ahead and play that in its entirety. I did put the link in the chat, so if you want to listen to the rest of that, you can. I probably should play a few minutes on the other side, just to kind of finish his thought there that I think is important. One other thing that I think I should play here, and I thought this was really interesting if I can find it. So when he does his commercial break, one of the things that he does is he has a series of commercials that are centered around Black organization and Black objectives, which I think is pretty cool. But the one I want you to pay attention to is Fleet and Family Center. And this is who I worked for the Navy earlier this year.
Are you a black male sailor or former sailor who received any type of counseling services, even if it's one visit at Navy Fleet and Family Support Center? Are you willing to confidentially share some of your experiences? If so, please go to the website below and complete the 15-minute survey. On the survey, please answer yes to the question, did you receive services, in order to get to the 15-minute survey. We would like to know about your entire experience, so please check yes to the question, did you receive services? The survey is part of a doctoral research project conducted by Walter Kelly. Your anonymous replies will be aggregated in his published dissertation at the University of Pennsylvania. Additional information about this project is located at the website below.
And that is at the 30th minute of that podcast. And I just realized that my picture is in the way of the whole URL. So again, if you want to, if you have received counseling at Fleet Family Center, there is a study that they're doing, and I thought that was interesting. But it just kind of goes to show that there's things that are happening. It ain't just me, for sure, but it is a new day. It's a new day. And what we're finding is um, we're not hiding anymore. We're not feeling like, oh, well, if we don't go along, you're not going to let us into the club. You're not going to let us into the space, right? You're not going to let us into the space anyway, unless we do it how you want us to do it, regardless. So once you get to that point, it's very freeing. It's very freeing. So now I can call out Black folks that are bad actors that pretending that they're in it for us when they're not. You know what questions to ask. And the thing is, they can make their proxy arguments or say, "Oh, we're not gonna respond to that." Where Michelle Obama said, "When they go low, we go high." We're just gonna call it out. So they could respond, not respond. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. In your churches, you talk about, oh, he's coming. It's soon. He's coming back. Get ready. Get ready. And most of y'all still act the same disgusting ways, day in and day out. It's business as usual. Absolution on Sunday and destroy your people every other day of the week, and usually on Sunday too. But he's coming back. Get right. Hmm. Those that buddy up with the dominant society, especially on the left, that identify with the folks on the left in the dominant society more than they identify with their own, yeah, it's a problem. And we can talk about how you can't find a way to work with this one and that one because of whatever the reason is. It's all good. Other folks in the BIPOC, the IPOC, the rest of y'all, hide behind minority status, disadvantaged population status, while you advocate for your things while hurting us, while standing next to us at the same time. So I'd rather stand next to the white supremacist holding up the OK sign with a Confederate flag in his hand, talking about white power, than stand next to you. Because I know what I'm getting. Someone during the broadcast sent me a text and said, "Hey, I want to come on to the podcast, but I saw the title and I just I want my name to be on there because people might think something. Can't make it up." And I get it, right? They got shit to lose. Powerful people will think a certain way of them and then keep them from making any gains or use it as a cudgel to beat them over later on. So we're afraid. We can tell the truth. We can be social justice warrior and woke to an extent. And it's okay if it's aimed at the right wing Republicans. That's all good. But if you're standing in a group and you turn around and you say, "No, I'm talking to y'all," oh, that's a problem. See, all of a sudden, that white fragility that they say that the right has, all of a sudden, it's an issue, right? And the dominant society has lived so wicked for so long. When they take both sides of an argument, Willie Lynch, read it. CRT. Oh, they're trying to do this and they're trying to do that. No, this is what CRT really is, and yada, yada, yada. Right and left. Blah, 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 blah. Tulsa. All of the black men and women that are still in jail and prison for marijuana, but most of our marijuana businesses are ran by white folks. John Boehner, who was against marijuana when he was part of the government, now part of one of the biggest marijuana firms on the planet. So we're supposed to listen to what the oppressor has to say about us not being oppressed anymore. And this is what we need to do. And this is how we need to act. When they continue to do the things that they do, as I said before, MSNBC, CNN, doesn't matter. Trump, 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 Trump. Trump is bad. We've got the indictment's coming for Trump. This is going to happen to Trump. Oh my goodness, Trump. Oh, we got Cardi B on to talk to her. Let her tell us what the black community's thinking and what's important to us. Oh, you don't agree with reparations either, huh, left? Hmm. Where are you going to get the money from? All of a sudden now it's a question of where are you going to get the money? How is it going to be spent? How are we going to ensure that it gets to the right people? There's nothing you can tell me. There should be nothing that you could tell any of us. Pookie and Ray Ray aside. Black church aside. Because in a lot of ways, they're starting to become the two wings on the same bird, just as the Republican and the Democratic Party. Now, what does your pastor say about that? It's a new day, y'all. It's a new day.
As a shield or as an amplifier, and they are promoting their agenda. Black Authority, very glad to be with you all here this evening as we are discussing holding on to honorary whiteness. And a bunch of folks out there, they have used the struggle of black folk. They got themselves in a position they want to be in, and they're either using us as a shield or as an amplifier, and they are promoting their agenda. And let's see where in the world that takes us to here next. Well, we started in New York, but we will end on the other side of the country, all the way out there in California. As you know, Gavin Newsom is in a political fight of his life now. There's a recall election on, and we don't know what's worse. We're literally stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea in this regard because, boy, I'm telling you, there are no winners here. This is an election of villains. This is an election of scoundrels. This is an election of the bad guys. You just need to choose which villain you want to vote. In this case, if you vote for one of these two, you're not choosing for the lesser of two evils. You're just choosing which villain you want to vote for. That's it. Are you voting for Lex Luthor or the Joker? That's really all you're really choosing here. That's the only thing you're really deciding. Are you voting for Thanos or the Red Skull? Which villain would you like to vote for here? Los Angeles Times would like to weigh in and attempt to influence your decision in this regard. So they have an article here that I thought was very interesting. Most Asian Americans are against the recall, but some haven't forgiven Newsom for his nail salon remark. Oh, really? So the writer of this article, An Do, sounds like a Vietnamese name. Phuoc Dam has not forgiven Governor Gavin Newsom for alleging that the first virus case in California stemmed from a nail salon. Dom, who owns Queen Nails in Brea, is still reeling from months without income after Newsom closed many businesses to stop the virus from spreading. He marked his ballot yes on recalling Newsom, putting it in the mail weeks ago. Quote, "It's simple. He cost us our livelihood," said Dom, 67, a Republican who moved to the U.S. from Vietnam. And by the way, that's him on the screen right there. For those of you looking at your screens right now, that's him, Mr. Phuoc Dam. 67 years old, a Republican who came to the United States from Vietnam. Sounds like he may have been a Vietnamese refugee. So he was a refugee from the Vietnamese War, and as soon as he got off the plane, the boat, the kayak, he said, "Point me to the Republican office so I can register." Quote, "We had to shut down for months and months for no clear reason." I think that one part right there, I really could probably stop reading after that. I could probably really stop reading after that one, just by telling that one part alone. By the way, Vietnamese sounds like a Vietnamese refugee based on his age. And, oh yeah, I'm a Republican. Vietnamese refugee Republican. Now, will someone please explain to me what a Vietnamese refugee knows about Democrats and Republicans? Will someone explain to me what he has in common? By the time he got to the United States, what, Reagan was in office? By the way, if we're going to remember that, Reagan was in office by then, remember? Depending on when he got here. Definitely Reagan would have been in office by the time he got here. He would have been a grown man, and Ronald Reagan would have been in office by the time he got here. Because I noticed you haven't seen them say yet when he arrived here, but he would have been a grown man in his late 20s. He would have been a grown man in his late 20s, and Reagan would have been in office by then. He would have been in office. So just so you have some idea, this guy would have been in his late 20s, a young man who arrived here and said, yeah, I identify with the Republicans. I identify with Reagan, who, by the way, by the time this all happened, Reagan would have left from being governor of California to being president of the United States. So we're showing, I am illustrating for you, for those of you who didn't know, Ronald Reagan was the governor. My really, really young folk who know, Ronald Reagan was the governor of California before he won the presidency. And this guy on the screen here, he's here for it. The story goes on to say Asian Americans have increasingly gravitated toward the Democratic Party, overwhelmingly supporting Joe Biden over Donald Trump in the last presidential election. A poll released Friday by the UC Berkeley Institute of Governmental Studies and co-sponsored by the Los Angeles Times showed that 70% of likely Asian American voters are against recalling the Democratic governor. That's a higher percentage than white voters at 56% and Latinos at 67%. Only Black voters at 73% are more anti-recall than Asian Americans, according to the poll. So let's get this straight. Black people, while this thing is sitting up here talking about Asians, the reality is Black folk are still out there being faithful, old, reliable Uncle Ben. But you notice the Los Angeles Times isn't talking about us. They're talking about everybody else. As Dr. Claude Anderson said, that they have attempted to change the national discussion and take it away from being white and Black and instead change it to being white and everybody else. This is what they're doing now. They go on to say, in Little Saigon, opinions are more mixed. Many Vietnamese immigrants are vehemently anti-communist, which often translates into support for the Republican Party. President Trump's tough on China stance endeared him to many Vietnamese, strengthening their conservative loyalties. This is not Jason Black talking. This is the Los Angeles Times talking. This is not Jason Black speaking. This is CNN talking. This isn't me. I'm not the one saying these things. This is CNN and the Los Angeles Times. Finally, after we were saying it here from this very microphone now for over a decade, we've been saying this for over a decade. When we talk about the buffer classes, when we talk about honorary whiteness, these are individuals who getting off the boat from places that you never heard of, and they're coming here and immediately identifying and gravitating to the most vehemently anti-Black elements in America, which means they had anti-Black principles and anti-Black sentiments before they got here. No wonder the government has had absolutely no reservations about bringing more and more of them here, but take a look at where they dump them off at. They take people with blatantly anti-Black sentiments, anti-Black cultures, anti-Black nationalities, and then dump them off in the most Black neighborhoods they can. Remember, one of the biggest enclaves of Vietnamese refugees was they dumped them off in New Orleans. So Dutch Morial became the first mayor of New Orleans, and they said, okay, why don't we go ahead and leave plenty of Vietnamese here for you niggas now? Oh, since there's enough of you now to get a mayor elected and control the local government, let's drop plenty of Vietnamese off there. And then you have a Vietnamese city councilwoman sitting up here talking greasy about Black folk, talking about, oh, we need in our neighborhoods fried chicken. We need to do a lot of folks like they fried chicken. Yeah, that's what they're bringing over here. And she's not even first generation. Tells you the apple ain't falling too far from the damn tree. They go on to say, add to that the plight of business owners during the pandemic and Newsom's nail salon remark, which was not backed by evidence, and the pro-recall contingent here is passionate. Nail salons, along with other small businesses, have been an economic mainstay for Vietnamese immigrants, vaulting them into the middle class. Now, I got to take a moment here to take a brief pit stop. Let me slam on the brakes and screech this car to a halt. Black women everywhere, did you hear that? The Vietnamese, they are acknowledging what we've been saying. The Vietnamese have utilized the cosmetics industry. They've utilized, personal grooming to, quote, vault themselves not into the working class, but the middle class. And this is why it's outright treason for Black women to A, not be doing their own nails, and B, most certainly not doing it for each other. Because these other folks have sat here and capitalized off of self-hate. Because let's be very, very clear, the majority of the Asians customers are Black folk, Black females specifically. Their salons are not full of white people. White people got their own folk to do that. They've been vaulted into the middle class by Black folk. They've been vaulted into the middle class by Black people, specifically Black women. It's not a bunch of white folk at their salons. Hell, ain't a bunch of Asians. It ain't a bunch of Asians, by the way. So just thought you should know, if you want to know how they were able to afford to gentrify you out of California, yeah, it's your money doing it. They go on to say, Vietnamese language radio and television commentators have called the Republican-led recall the, quote, top issue facing the state, sprinkling their reports with images of Democratic heavyweights like Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Obama campaigning with Newsom. The Vietnamese media has tried to stay neutral, offering information on what it takes to mount a recall while highlighting the optimistic mood among Democrats as well as Republican efforts to topple the status quo. Larry Elder, the Republican frontrunner to replace Newsom if the recall is successful, has courted Asian voters by attacking the governor's business shutdowns and highlighting how Asian American students have been hurt by affirmative action. But whoa, wait a minute. All the Biden butt kissers and all of you Democrat donkey riders have been spending decades telling us, oh, they minorities like us. Why, Jason, you bones. Why, they see themselves as Black like us. Jason, see, that's the problem right there. You don't really understand why it is. You don't really understand. They see themselves just like us, Jason. They see themselves just like us. I got a tune for y'all. All the folk who've been talking about they see themselves as minorities like us. Yeah, tonight I'm hitting the banjo music just for you. You can go ahead and get your thistle and your straw hat and your overalls. I'm hitting the banjo music just for you. Because you're the one pulled this one out. So you can go ahead and cut a rug to that. Larry Elder is sitting here with straight white supremacist Fox News talking points, and there's an Asian American contingency, specifically in California, because remember, it was the Asians who were going against it in California. They were loving that. Oh, well. It goes on to say, but Elder, a conservative radio talk show host with roots in South Los Angeles, has not caught on broadly among Asian Americans, either in Little Saigon or statewide. The UC Berkeley poll showed 23% of likely Asian American voters selected Elder for question 2, the lowest of any ethnic group. Well, so much for your minority coalition. Dom, who has owned his nail salon for more than 20 years, said he left the second question blank because he is not familiar with the challengers. Bullcrap. After reopening last fall, his salon is down from 22 employees to 10. Now, folks, how many black businesses do you know of that could have gone through this and survived, by the way? By the way, they're doing so well, they can go for over a year with only part of the money they're making and still be kicking, by the way. So they're not living on a prayer. He goes on to say that customers are still fearful of outings like manicures and pedicures that require sustained indoor contact, and some workers are reluctant to come back, he and other salon professionals said. Dom pointed to the French Laundry incident, where Newsom was caught violating his own virus restrictions by dining with several other families at an expensive restaurant. Quote, I tell you, the governor was partying without a mask with his friends while telling us to wear masks, Dom said. He made it appear as if the law doesn't apply to him, and this is not what people in Little Saigon respect. They respect the truth. At a small rally organized by Vietnamese recall proponents last month in Westminster, manicurists demanded that Newsom be ousted for not publicly apologizing that he and his staff made a mistake in May by singling out a nail salon as ground zero for the virus. Some passed out flyers with images of Newsom unmasked to show that he flouted his own safety guidelines. Others gave interviews to radio and television reporters, detailing the huge financial losses they suffered after their salons closed. So do you all see here for the Vietnamese, they ain't talking to them about no damn inclusion. They're not talking about integration. They're not talking about religion. And ain't nobody talking about forgive. They're talking to them about money. They're talking to them about concrete tangibles. They're talking to them about financial benefits, direct financial benefits, and how they are doing financially and economically. They're not talking about religion, politics, education. They're going straight to the money. See, this is how they talk to other people. This is what the subject of discussion is for other people, not for us. When it comes to us, they start talking about religion and getting along and Dr. King and skip right over the economic. So when they come to talk to black folk, we need to get straight to cut the check. That's what we need to have. I want you all to observe the difference in what the subject matter is when they're talking to the Vietnamese. I want you to observe the difference. They go on to say, at the start of the pandemic in March 2020, California was home to 11,000 nail salons, with 80% owned by Vietnamese Americans, according to the Pro Nails Association. Let me repeat that one more time. At the start of the pandemic in March of 2020, California was home to 11,000 nail salons, with 80% owned by Vietnamese. 80%. 80%. Consider that for a few moments. So about what, 9,000 of those 11,000 owned by Vietnamese. Experts say the backlash against Newsom in the Vietnamese community is not surprising. Quote, certainly there's a sense of insult to the community when a core group of its members have been portrayed negatively like this, especially when that community historically has leaned toward the Republicans because of the party's consistent anti-communist messaging, said Sarah Sanwani, assistant professor of politics at Pomona College, who has researched voting behavior with an emphasis on the representation of racial, ethnic, and immigrant communities. Sadwani said that while Chinese Americans, Filipino Americans, Indian Americans, and Korean Americans have steadily leaned toward the Democratic Party, Vietnamese Americans often have followed a different path. In a poll conducted a few months before the 2020 presidential election, Vietnamese Americans were the only Asian group to support Trump over Biden. By the way, that's a distinction without a difference, but worth noting for future elections. Last week, Elder hopped on stage at the landmark Asian Garden Mall in Little Saigon, trashing the governor's, quote, draconian state shutdown. Quote, a good third of all small businesses are gone forever, he said. Many of those businesses are owned by racial minorities, end quote. So Elder don't get it. Manicurist Kathy Gwynn showed up because she was deciding how to vote. Gwynn, a Republican from Garden Grove in her 40s, said she was intrigued by Elder's open honesty, especially on crime and anti-Asian violence. Well, what do you know there? What do you know there? So what are they telling you? Oh, we know our coons. You know, we know he's a coon. We know we voting for. We know he hates y'all Negroes as much as us, so we get that. Well, there you go. All right, just wanted to point it out to you there real fast so you could go ahead and see it's not an accident. They didn't stutter and it wasn't an accident there. At a Tuesday press conference, Elder, who is black, criticized the media for not highlighting the race of anti-Asian hate crime perpetrators, many of whom he alleged were black. So the writer of this article is dropping some dog whistles, Miss Ando. The writer of the article is dropping a few dog whistles in there just in case, but it does highlight for you. They know what the hell they're voting for. They know what the hell they're voting for. They didn't find Elder by accident. They know what they're voting for over there. They know what he's about. They know what he says. They know that he's one of these blacks who hates himself. They know what they're getting. Don't let any of them fool you and tell you, oh, it's just about economics. They know where he stands on black folk. Oh, good. He'll be a good excuse to be able to camouflage my anti-black racism. He'll be a good excuse for that. There you go. Oh, well. Before anybody tries to tell you they don't know what they're voting for, yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. It goes on to say here that Gwen said that she, quote, appreciates that this is a man who highlights the race of the perpetrators of crimes when sometimes politicians are afraid to mention race. So this Vietnamese woman and this Vietnamese writer of this article, because it's the writer of the article including this. So the writer of this article is using this woman as her proxy to say that she appreciates that Larry Elder mentions the race of the perpetrators. Well, we know who the perpetrators were who brought this virus over to the United States, but they tell you that you can't talk about the race of the perpetrator. But when it comes to singling out black folk and identifying black people, we don't have a problem saying where the viruses come from there, Ebola, Zaire. We don't have a problem saying that. We don't have a problem pointing out race. It's perfectly fine to point out race when you're talking about black folk. But for everybody else, oh, no. See, when we can, there's only one group of people in America who are identified by their race, specifically by omitting their race. That's white people. Because by definition, the American default is white. White society does not want to be identified as white. Identification is for everybody else, not for the dominant society. For them, it's a given. The power of white supremacy is by exercising white supremacy, but demanding and enforcing that no one can use that word. So it is ever present and ever working, but is also ever invisible. You are forbidden to use that word white. They will make sure that you do it as infrequently as possible and not at all if possible. But where black folk are concerned, we need to make sure we point that out. And now you got the Asians who are telling you that pointing out people's races is wrong and it puts a stigma on them. And here she is lined up. Well, I'm glad he's pointing out these Negroes over here, sounding just like Sean Hannity and Fox News. So much for your minority coalition. The article here goes on to say, but plenty of Vietnamese American voters are against the recall. Graphic designer Jesse Gwynn, a Democrat, is trying to persuade family and friends to vote no. Their attraction to Trump makes it an uphill battle. Quote, people want to be Trumpists and do as Trump would do, she said. Watching fellow ping pong players rocket the ball back and forth at the Orange County Table Tennis Association in Fountain Valley, Vin Tran said Newsom has handled the pandemic beautifully. The state is still striving economically and offering opportunities for immigrants, so there is no need to boot Newsom, said Tran, 57, a chemistry professor who is not registered with a political party. Quote, he did what needed to be done to keep us safe, Tran said. Hong Nguyen, 55, of Santa Ana, has been anti-recall from the start. Quote, no governor has been as visible as Mr. Newsom on fighting the virus, said Gwynn, a restaurant manager, while in line for quail eggs at Bow in Baggett in Fountain Valley. Quote, he deserves to be at the head of the state. Please understand, it doesn't matter who you vote for in this regard, because this is the thing I've been trying to tell you here. It doesn't really matter if you vote for Newsom or Elder. What you need to remember is that it's not Gavin Newsom or Larry Elder who are on the ballot. White supremacy is on the ballot. Neither of them is backing a black agenda. You got the one who doesn't back a black agenda and does it quietly, and then you got the one who outright yells at you that he doesn't have a black agenda. And matter of fact, he's here to undermine you. Well, both of them are here to undermine you. One is telling you outright, and the other one is whispering it behind closed doors. Neither one of those is a viable option. It is white supremacy that is on the ballot. It's white supremacy that is on the ballot. It's white supremacy. And everybody else gets it. That's the point. So even if they vote for, just because they're voting for Newsom doesn't mean that they're not voting against us. That is the point I'm trying to make to you here. Just because they're voting for Gavin Newsom does not mean that they are not voting against us. And you might be deceived into telling yourself, well, they're voting against Gavin. They're voting against Larry Elder, so that means that I take that to good side right there. Okay, some of you there doing the Bojangles. Just because they're voting for Gavin Newsom doesn't mean they're not voting against us. You can vote for Larry Elder and be voting against us, but guess what? You can be voting for Gavin Newsom and also be voting against us as well. Remember what Neely Fuller taught us all: white supremacy always takes both sides of an issue. It always takes both sides of an argument. We're the only ones who don't realize that. And these other folk are coming out the gap, understanding what they're doing and understanding that this is the price of holding on to their artificial honorary whiteness. How they treat us, how they regard us, how they mistreat us, their level of hostility toward us. That is the coin of the realm when it comes to holding on to honorary whiteness. So they can sit here and talk about anti-Asian this, anti-Arab that. White society is not worried about that. White society wants to know, so how do you feel about how you're going to treat these Negroes over here? That's what we want to know. How do you feel about that? Because they understand that ultimately these other groups are not trying to overthrow white supremacy. They're merely trying to elevate their own status within white supremacy. They're not trying to destroy the system. They're trying to improve their position in it, but they're not trying to destroy it. Black people are the reason why the majority of black people are aligned against Larry Elder is because black people are the only group that is actively, routinely fighting white supremacy. Everybody else isn't. Everybody else wants to figure out, are there any more cookies and crumbs they can scrape off the table? That's it. But they are not attempting to dismantle this system, and none of them are trying to destroy it. None of them. So just understand, they're not voting for Newsom because they think that's going to be a blow against white supremacy. They said what they said. Why, take a look at how great this will be for, quote, immigrants. They ain't talking about you. They're not talking about you. When they talk about immigrants, they don't mean you. They don't mean any of us. You got big old Asian communities out there. They're not talking about any of us when they talk about minorities and whatnot. That's not who they're talking about. Just understand that. That is not who they're talking about. Right now, there's a push by all these groups here to try to hold on to their honorary whiteness. Latino, Asian, Arab has become everybody against us. And they're all showing you just how easily they can assimilate into the system, just how easily they can be assimilated by the society. And their honorary white status will be honored. It's just that simple. But maybe you disagree. So we're going to go ahead and open the telephone lines. The number is 646-787-1933.
All right, so I'm gonna stop it there. Yeah, his guest come on. One thing I'll say about his guest is obviously just like all of our guests, we don't control our guests. So whatever they say is what they say, and they can say some pretty crazy things. So yeah, that's a conversation that's not being had in the circles they need to be had in, right? The circles of the left, definitely not being had there. And as long as that's not being had, I don't know exactly what it is that we expect to change. On 9/11, my white card was revoked. So acknowledging that you, one, are putting white down on the census, identify as white passing, voting for the interest of the dominant society. Very difficult to build a coalition on that. But yet we are supposed to fight for everyone, fight for immigration, fight for Afghanis. Not sure what the correct term is on that. Fight for the LGBT community, fight for women, fight for the poor. We're supposed to fight for everyone. And oftentimes, in the majority, right? Not all, not all, not all are not fighting for black folks. And they damn sure aren't fighting for black men. At best, they'll fight for black women. And again, you know that's true because of Black Lives Matter and the movement. How many millions of dollars did they end up with? Again, did you take the chance to take the opportunity to Google grants for black folks and see what pops up? It's Black women and minorities, as if black men are doing so well. And we talked about the state of our black boys, and we know that black women are the most educated. So if this go along to get along, it's got to stop. Don't pretend you're an ally if you're not. I don't know how many spaces I sit in, and it's like, oh, you know what? I'm the white person in the room, so I'm just gonna sit back and have you, let you take the floor and kind of lead the conversation or whatever. We've got some powerful white people here in this community that hold the purse strings, right? Actually applied for a grant out of Seattle. And the grantee, I'm saying that right, had to check with White Daddy, which is United Way, to inquire about us. So even when these organizations are trying to do the right thing, right? Well, we'll go and check with White Daddy. United Way, do you know who these people are? You know what they're doing? And once he gave his blessing, then we were able to receive some of the funding. Let that sit. You know, the train is pulling away. Snowpiercers that's my show, right? I didn't really care for the movie, but the series is pretty awesome. It's about this train. The world freezes over, right? Humans do bad with the environment, and so humans can't survive. It's like I don't know how many degrees below. So they're on this super long train that has to keep going, otherwise everyone will die. And so the cars are set by class, right? So rich folks up in the front, and then it gets all the way back to the basically to slaves, right? So it's an interesting show. And it talks about, how the slaves are trying to revolt and, you know, the rich people trying to keep things in place and just kind of all kinds of crazy stuff. And how folks at different stages of the train will fight to stay at that stage. So even if they are being treated badly or being oppressed themselves, they're not you. So they will help them to keep you where you're at, even to their own detriment. I don't know what you see in the long run. I know many who watch this, God fearing folks that attend the Christian church. I know you're trying to get right. I don't know how much time you think you have, or if you think that your relationships and the positions that you have, the ways in which you've compromised your folks, are going to keep you safe as things collapse. They say, yeah, I'm just thinking, just talking now. But I wonder, for those of us that have seen The Purge, does art imitate life? Does life imitate art? Could it get to that point? Is it like that in some countries? We see it in movies all the time, right? Where the poor and the oppressed turn on their oppressors, the rich, the wealthy. It's an article, podcast I was watching the other day about a guy on Fox News that was like, you know, towing the line of, I can't get anyone to come to work. And he was saying how, I mean, I'd even be willing to compromise and give him a living wage. Like what? Like he's literally saying it out loud, right? Now they say, people speaking the parts out loud that they're supposed to be just saying in their head. It's like, whoa. So I wonder how bad does it have to get until people, the video I was showing where you see the homeless that are strung out. When do they turn on the rest of society? When do the numbers become so large that your gated community isn't going to keep you safe? See, the strange thing about it is the way that they exist simultaneously. Like you get off the ferry, you drive past them, you walk past them, they walk past them in their suits, right? They walk past hundreds of people in a tent city, and they feel like they're safe. And it's like if those 100 people just were like, you know what, uh, enough is enough. We're tired of it, and just started attacking. But the fact that we feel safe, it's like nothing will happen. It's okay. They'll just continue to be marginalized. That's not even an appropriate word. We can just keep pushing them to the side. We can treat them worse and worse and worse and worse. We'll legalize everything. We won't create programs for those of you who are working class, that are maybe above the federal poverty line, because they've got that number just set like ridiculously low. It's laughable. It's like, how is that? Why is your poverty line set so low? Like that doesn't even make sense. Like the poverty line of someone who is it just doesn't make any sense. No affordable homes. Eviction moratorium getting ready to wear off. Matter of fact, the video was playing. Let me see if I can pull this up really quick. And there was an article on Facebook, and it was talking about how Pierce County, I guess, has the highest instance or issue with unpaid rent in the state of Washington, right? That's not far away, folks. Some of us are terrified of Tacoma. Ooh, that's scary. Tacoma. Let's see if I can find this really quick. 750-pound alligator. That's creepy looking. That's just, I just look at I just look at the things, man. I look at the things. Let me try to get this up here. It makes me laugh. When you know what people say and do in the background, you know what's real and what's not. Shout out to Deborah Moore on her award here. That's pretty awesome. So she has done a lot of work in this community, a lot of thankless work. She has been under attack. One of the hardest working women that I know, who is authentic in her service and her love of folks. So a shout out to her. Sincerely. I've seen the work. I've gotten the phone calls from her when she's in the hospital, still trying to figure out how to help people and trying to get me to help her folks. She is a people, a person, a person for the people. That is undeniable. And she takes a lot. She takes a lot. So, very deserving of that award. Very happy to see that that she was recognized in that way. And that's what we have to do. They talk about giving someone their roses. Yes, acknowledging it. You know what? It's interesting because I think about the Oscars and the Tonys and all that, and of course, you want to be, you want to win the awards of the standard that's set. But again, we're talking about the dominant society. Now, unfortunately, then you have the, the BETs of the world, and when BET first started, right, when it was black owned and um, was a good cultural outlet for black people. Then when they had the BET awards and things like that, those things meant something. You know what I mean? But now, it's been sold and it's laughable, right? It's just a show. It's like we're a caricature, like we're a meme. But we can create our own awards. When we stop trying to do as the dominant society does, we'll be far better off. Here we are praising and deifying our athletes, our artists, when we should be doing that to our teachers, to our mentors, to our advocates, to our community workers. Could you imagine if we said, you know what? We are no longer going to value the things that the dominant society says that we should value. And this is what we see. This is what we say has value. And that's what we're going to pour our energy into. So you're not going to have a Cardi B or Meg Thee Stallion under the Trojan horse of girl power talking to Maxine Mims. And that's the access. And you're swallowing some poison pill. She's not even letting her kids listen to her music. but she's putting it out there for your consumption. Your kids can do the dance and recite the lyrics almost as if they wrote and did the choreography themselves. They can't add worth a damn. They can't spell worth a damn. But that's what we value. It's time to get accountable. But you know what? We all love our McDonald's French fries, and we do need someone to make sure that our fries are fresh. And if we really want to be asses and we want fresh fries, then we're going to say no salt. So, we'll pull over so you can make our fries with no salt so we can get them piping hot. We do need those people. Well, until it gets automated. So, if that's what you want for your sons and daughters, then so be it. Because I do like McDonald's French fries. We can't save them all. And honestly, are you even worthy of being saved? We can talk that crap and say, oh, everyone should be loved and everyone this and everyone that. You know what? Maybe not. Maybe not. Let me turn this off. I am just trying to find the article on Pierce County and housing. Killing each other in Chicago. Well, it's a problem. It's an issue. It sucks. It's unfortunate. Tomorrow's leaders, who knows what those babies could have grown up to be. But hell, they don't give a damn. And that's their kinfolk. Why the hell should we? Again, can't save them all. Triage. Church and their thinking. They got God, so they know what they're doing. They're self-righteous. Can't save them all. Why should we? So when they're operating on their faith and ignorance alone, meh. you know, don't even matter. It's like, again, three camps. The one that are on your side are resilient, receptive to the message. Those on the other side that you're not going to be able to move or wake up, the Pookies, the Ray Rays, the lost churches. And then the ones that will actually listen, that can be stirred awake, that can turn against the church. And notice I didn't say against God, I said turn against the church. My dad would tell me, because the Bible talks about how, it's dangerous. Woe to the person that would steer a person away from God. And I'm like, well, shit, what does that mean for all the churches? Because, I mean, they're steering away, especially black men from the church in droves, right? So what happens there? Hmm. But what he would tell me is like, it's like, son, because I just couldn't understand it. He's like, well, look, think of the church like a hospital, and it's a hospital for sinners. So of course, these people are going to be here at the church. Oh, I need to show you this. Hope 360 has a Christmas giveaway Thursday, December 23rd. It'll be from 5 to 7 p.m. Deborah actually came up with this quote here. Tis the season. Don't let COVID be the reason. While you're waiting on St. Nick, make sure you don't get sick. So for registration, questions, contact Surviving Change, kitsap@gmail.com, or give them a call at 360-471-0865. The location will be Sinclair Baptist Church up there with Pastor Frankie. And G2 will be supporting this event. So absolutely, absolutely. Like I said, look at that. She got an award in the post below, and then she's working on the Christmas program in the post above. Right, Deborah. Deborah gets it in. That's all I got to say. She's doing the work. But as I was saying, my dad would say, "Hey, the church is a hospital. It's a hospital for sinners. That's really what it is, right?" Because I just couldn't understand, right? You hear about, the different, crazy stuff you got ministers doing and pastors doing. You hear about the folks in church, I know because well, I'm a PK kid. So see him at the club on Saturday night, turning it up, and then sitting on the pew, hungover on Sunday, giving their lives to God and praying for forgiveness to rinse and repeat. The backbiting, the uninviting church. Come in as a new person, people looking at you like, who are you? What you doing here? What you about? Or they want you to come in and see what you can do for them. They're ready to put you to work. They want your tithes, offering. They want your labor, right? You just trying to figure out if this is a space that might exist for you. But folks acting kind of cultish and definitely looking down their nose at you. I always wondered why. It's one of the reasons why I really liked New Horizon Baptist Church. Shout out to Pastor Mac, soon to be Pastor Ellington. It's one of the things I really liked about them is, they really have a come as you are mentality. And I've seen the homeless in their pews. I've seen the downtrodden. I've seen the least. When you did it to me, when you did it to the least of these, you did it to me. I've seen that there. I don't see that too many other places. Everyone's suited and booted, dressed to the nines, armed with judgment and drama. Now, a lot of folks been here for a long time, so they're all clicked up, got their stuff going on. So, if you ain't gonna come in and kiss the ring, that ain't gonna be the church for you. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, probably ain't gonna be able to do it. And again, individually, good folks at the churches. There's good folks at McZion. There's good folks at Sinclair. There's good folks at Emmanuel. There's good folks at some of the other churches. I don't know the names of all of them. But there's a lot of bullshit going on up in there too. A lot of bullshit. And the church are some of the biggest gatekeepers in any community. So if they don't say it's okay, yeah, the little white organizations, they're not going to bless it. You ain't moving. You're not going to get any headway. As you can see, you know what's interesting is I don't curse very often. I curse way more than I used to. And you know, my uh my lesson for my students is, one, there's too many words in the English dictionary for you to not be able to get your point across without cursing. There's too many words. Two, when your ass is in court, all of a sudden it's your honor. So you have folks that'll say, "Oh, I just can't. I can't. I mean, it's just who I am. I curse. That's what I do." Yeah, but when your ass is on the line, all of a sudden you can hold your tongue. This is one of the reasons why I don't allow anyone to curse around Layla, right? And I don't buy the, "Oh, I can't help myself." No, you can help yourself. You weren't doing it in class with your teachers. You weren't doing it at work with your supervisor and your boss. Can you imagine being in an interview? Yeah, I want this job, but the last employer, he was a piece of shit. So, I just had to tell him how it was. But I am who I am. So it just is what it is. It's just that's what I do. So you understand. Right. People are funny. People are funny. But you don't have to. You don't have to curse. There's too many words in the English dictionary. Now I do like to curse when I really want to make a point. And so if you don't curse on a regular basis, when you do, it tends to just give your statement the je ne sais quoi. Just put a little bit of extra on it. So I try not to curse. Actually, I don't try not to curse. I just don't swear very often. Although I do swear a lot more now than I used to. Winter's here, folks. But come March of 22, come June and July, when it's hot again in 22, it is still going to be winter. It is still going to be winter. You must get ready. You just start being accountable for your actions, the damage that you've done to people, your pettiness. See people on Facebook talk about how they like being petty. I like being petty. I'm petty. I'm just a petty person. All right. All right, petty. Hope you got it all together. Let's play it out. It is the middle of September. Look at the state of the country now. Look at the division now. We got vaccine issues. We got masking issues. We've got a variant that's out of control. We've got folks that don't want their kids to wear the mask in school. We've got the moratorium that's getting ready to end. We got the $300 unemployment that has expired. We've spent so much money. Can't keep spending it. right? Can't keep doing it. Got to start making it so they need to keep the economy open. So now you're going to be forced to get the vaccine. Well, that's got some issues. To force people to be vaccinated definitely is an issue. And when and where do they draw the line? Especially when you can't sue. That's a problem. So you already see the state of the nation and how people are reacting. And we have midterm elections coming up next year. So the obstruction, the fighting, the finger pointing, the dirty politics, all that'll be in full force all next year. I don't even think Biden would have guessed that he would be pulling the trigger on Afghanistan within his first 9 months of his term. I don't think Kamala would think that she would be so unpopular as the vice president at this time. They thought they had COVID in hand. They were doing pretty good. But we got the midterms. We got this Delta variant. There's the Mu variant. Who knows what's going to happen with that? The experts are saying, they are experts, but the experts are saying, oh, hey, this thing can continue to evolve. And let's hope, like hell, it doesn't evolve to something that is a lot more deadly, is resilient to the vaccine. Well, after the midterm elections, well, what are you going to get done during that time? Are the Democrats going to retain their power? Are they going to gain power? Or are they going to lose it? What are the ramifications if it's just status quo, right? What actually gets done? Because even though the country is in the state that it is, they're still more interested in fighting each other than actually getting things accomplished. I mean, look at the abortion bill in Texas. Could you imagine that you can sue and the driver who brings someone to an abortion clinic? And Republicans kind of remind me of like greedy children. It's like, oh, I want some pizza. I want this. It's like, okay, I'll let you have some. Then you try to take all of it. And Democrats are like, well, let's ask the Republicans if they're okay with this. We want to get these things. And are you guys okay with that? Oh, do you want us to negotiate against ourselves? Okay, we'll take this off the table. Oh, not good enough. Oh, okay, we'll take that off too. Oh, and that. Oh, we'll take that off. Oh, do we have our own Democrats that are really Republicans that are also saying they're not going to go along with it? Okay, well, no $15 minimum wage. Oh, no universal health care. Okay. No forgiveness of student loan debt. Yeah, no, we're not. We can't. And then you get Pelosi saying, well, imagine if, you don't have any kids and now you are being asked to have your tax dollars, money that you have to pay into to pay off someone else's student debt. And it's like, what? We bail out businesses, banks. We fight wars that we don't ask to fight into. Our tax money is spent in ways that none of us would approve anyway. What are you talking about? And then you get the leadership of the Democratic Party saying the same dumb crap that the right says. But they're the social justice warrior party. Useless. But it would be so much worse if you voted Republican. So we might be bad, we might be inept, but we're not them. And then they'll try to shame you. Your ancestors died for the right for you to vote. Nope, that's not why they died. They died because of evil, racist people. That's why they died. That's why we're in the situation we're still in now. So, when the choice is bad or worse, and if what you're saying could be true, let's say they did die for our right to vote. Well, not voting is also a vote. Every other demographic demands something for their vote. As Biden said, come see me after. At least I talked about it. I'm the only one talking about it. Talked to black leadership like they were children and scolded them. I'm not going to do executive orders for you. Oh, I'll do it for this group and that group and that group. Now sit down and shut up and be happy. Be grateful. Oh, what's one of the latest things he said? Oh, you need to start talking to the Latino group because they're going to start being the biggest voting bloc. So, we ain't going to be able to really help you anymore. So you better make nice with them. Oh, yeah, by the way, I wasn't the guy who mass incarcerated Biden's bill. The whole super predators and mandatory minimums and everything else, right? I'm not that guy anymore. But it's so interesting because, a white supremacist can take off the sheet and say he's a reformist and they'll put him on TV and do specials, right? And just applaud the fact that he is a reformed, racist, Klan member. The video I played, the fact that I played the video from the gentleman who I played it from, that's enough for folks to want to cancel me. If you speak critically about the Jewish community, LGBTQI community, that's enough to get you canceled. But this man could incarcerate our people in the millions. And he's just welcomed into the black church. Schools. Kamala can jail women whose kids are truant from school, but the parents are homeless, struggling. But, so is it too much to say that the drive-by shootings and the deaths that happen in Chicago and other inner cities, the black church can be almost as deadly as that? Is that going too far? And of course, I don't mean all black churches, right? I just mean most of them. Hmm. That might be too much, huh? My pastor. Don't talk about my pastor. We'll talk about my church. So blinded, man. Please wake up, y'all. Please wake up. Time is short. It's already too late for so many of us. Got to band together. Really easy to snap one toothpick in half. But if you take all the toothpicks out of the box and you try to break them, you can't do it. You can't do it. What we have to do is call out those who are in the way, those who are hurting us, the gatekeepers, the ones that have put themselves in position to function successfully in the dominant society and will do anything to ensure that they don't lose their foothold. They will not lose their meritorious manumissions. They will fight you. They will destroy you, your character, your opportunities, your legacy, to keep from losing favor with the dominant society. They have a vested interest to keep the machine intact. It's so interesting how you have folks talk about white supremacy and institutional oppression, institutional racism. But then when you start getting specific about it, all of a sudden, unless they're pointing over at far right white nationalists or Fox News or Trump, that's the only place that it exists. They don't see it existing in the left, in their own house. They don't see themselves as upholding it. So when you talk about white supremacy, it's like, well, how can I? Because that article came out, about Larry Elder, right? He's saying, he's a black white supremacist. Like, well, he's black. How is that possible? That doesn't even make any sense. But as the article that I went over showed, right? Other demographics identifying as white or white passing. Question is, have you lost your white card? If you did, are you trying to get it back? See, racist people that are poor, they'll tell you, well, I'm poor, but at least I'm not black. You hear all kinds of stuff in the services that we provide. Well, it's Monday. It's 5:50 a.m. I do hope that you have a beautiful Monday. I hope you have a fruitful week. Winter is here. I say frio. It's cold. Please get ready. Find like-minded people like yourself. Find folks that have other knowledge, skills, and ability, and find a way. We had that Mark Boatwright Frost on, and I'll be actually sharing out some of his information. He's got that class coming up. But there are some folks that are serious about getting ready. So that resiliency project, that is some serious stuff. We have to do that in our community. We have to do it in this community. If you had people in Texas when that snowstorm hit and they lost power and they were having water burst, people were dying. Texas, snow, doesn't happen. Earthquake, Washington, doesn't happen. Pandemic. doesn't happen. These things are happening. And when the crisis hits, everybody needs help. So the handout that you've been looking for, the handout that you normally get and receive, that's not going to be there. Because the giver is probably going to have their handout trying to get help themselves. We're out of time, folks. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Meet your 5 people this month. Increase your circle of influence. Increase your circle of support. And as I said before, I actually do like my fries with no salt, unless they're fresh, and then they can be really salty, and they're bomb. Now you put it in your mouth, can't wait for it to cool off. So you kind of blowing it while you're chewing it at the same time. Oh yeah, we need people to make those fries until they automate it. So it's up to you. People can only care so much, and for those of us that do care, we can only extend our caring only so far, because the farther we try to stretch it, the less effective we are. If you remember, you used to be able to call around to churches and they could pay rent. They could do all kinds of really cool things, right? Well, the community is also strapped. They can't do as much as they used to be able to do. Look at the tea leaves. Look at the tea leaves. All right, y'all. I'm Marwan Cameron. This is the Conduit. I will see you later for the next show. I believe there's one tonight at 5 p.m. All right.